Brian, I wanted to first start with your opinion on what are the biggest takeaways from this report that you conducted with both US and Taiwanese experts?
I think one of the big takeaways is, China has different options in terms of what it can do to pressure, coerce Taiwan, and to force unification too, if that's what it deems what it wants to do. I think so. A lot of the discourse here in Washington often revolves around an invasion, and so one of the things that I think came out of this survey is that in the next couple of years, a blockade or a quarantine is more likely than an invasion. At least that's what these experts largely saw as the case. I think that's got a lot to do with the capabilities that China has as its disposal. I think our experts largely viewed a quarantine and a blockade as being more feasible than an invasion. But I think another big takeaway from this survey is there are significant differences in views among scholars from the U.S. and Taiwan about what exactly the threat looks like from China. I think the Taiwan scholars in the survey tended across pretty much all questions to view China as being slightly less capable in terms of its military capabilities.
Another section of this report talks about how long Taiwan could last if China were to blockade the main island with limited or maybe no US intervention. Did anything shock you from these findings?
I think one of the things maybe that was surprising was how much this was one of the questions where there was actually quite a lot of similarities between the US and Taiwan views on this question. So um, there were very different thoughts, but I think largely the views coalesced around Taiwan probably being able to wait out about 3 months. That there's a big spectrum, but few people thought Taiwan would be able to last more than say 6 months or a year. It was much more focused in that what we kind of put as a medium range of around maybe a month, 1 to 3 months, or 3 to 6 months. So somewhere in there is about where most people saw that being. So in our survey, we use the word quarantine to describe a law enforcement led scenario in which China uses not the military, but law enforcement and civilian, or at least quasi civilian organizations like the China Coast Guard to block traffic to and from Taiwan, to shut off trade. Whereas a blockade is with the PLA, the Chinese military, leading those operations. So there's a significant difference in terms of escalations and what Beijing is willing to put out there in the Taiwan Strait.
Now, given these findings, what do you think policymakers here in Taiwan should do to reflect the findings that are in this report and maybe apply that to their actual military strategy?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I think it's one that there's a lot of divided views on. In my perspective, one of the things that this survey highlights is that we certainly can't rule out the option of China pursuing a blockade. And so, the kinds of forces that you need to run a blockade or defend against a blockade are really different from the kinds of forces that you would use to repel or stop an invasion. So I think Taiwan does need to take those threats of a blockade seriously, and that also means taking a lot of non-military responses as well, and thinking about energy security, food security, and how Taiwan can make itself more resilient to a scenario like a blockade.